Hello and welcome to the Galactic Core podcast. My name is Chef and I'm your host as each week I discuss the latest TV episodes, films, games and whatever else takes my fancy from the worlds of Star Wars, Marvel, DC and anything else nerdy and geeky in between. If this is the first time that you found us, then please do give us a follow on our social media pages. You'll find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and also Twitch, where I do, not always successfully, but I do try and game a couple of times a week. You can find all the links in the episode description, and please make sure that you're giving the show a like, a follow, and a review on whichever platform it is that you listen or watch on. It really does mean the world to hear that you are liking and enjoying the show. Right now, we're going to get straight into the main event, so please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode. So, in today's episode, I am so excited because we are talking about the return of Star Wars. Yes, it's my favourite thing. We all know it's my absolute favourite thing in the entire world. Feels like a minute since I've been able to talk about Star Wars. It's been Marvel for weeks with Secret Invasion. But now we've got a brand new series to talk about on Disney+, Ahsoka, Rebels Season 5, however you want to view it. This is what we're here to talk about for the next 7-8 weeks. And I'm really excited to be joined by an amazing guest today. He's a fantastic YouTuber who has been building himself up and has got a really good presence. I've been following him for a little while now and messaging and talking with him. And I get to see all of his great things that he does online, on Instagram as well, with these little buys that he gets with his little pop Funkos and bits and pieces like that. So I'm really, really excited to be welcoming to the podcast, Clan Brandalorian. How are you doing, bud? Welcome to the show.
Man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And man, let's get into it, man.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, as I can see from your background, you know, the love of Star Wars that you have. What is it about Star Wars itself that draws you in and keeps you coming back?
Man, you know, when I was about 6 years old, my dad got me a copy of The Phantom Menace. And, you know, I loved them all, you know, just like every kid did. He was real scary. And especially I was into horror growing up as a kid. So Darth Maul, I was like, oh, I like this guy. Double-bladed lightsaber, you know, what can go wrong? But pretty much that is what got me on. And then waiting for Attack of the Clones. And I was 5 years old. I do remember going to that movie. I was in kindergarten. But it's basically my youth, man. You know, I shout out to my dad putting me on to Star Wars. He was a huge original trilogy guy. So now I just kind of put on for our generation for Star Wars. And of course we got Disney Star Wars, very controversial. But I do give it every ounce of faith that I can, because if I was those directors or those CEOs, I know it'd be just as hard, even worse. So, but man, you know, it's Star Wars. It's my favorite fandom for sure. Besides sports, I'm just a nerd, man. You know, I love Star Wars. But yeah, man.
Talk to us a little bit about your nerd credentials then, because it's something I love hearing from all my various guests. You know, what do you think qualifies you as a nerd? What are all the other things that you're into apart from Star Wars?
Ooh, man, on a nerd level, I mean, there's definitely a lot of fandoms that I like to credential myself as like a part of. I love The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad. You know, I love what AMC does. But alongside Star Wars, of course, it's really just certain things, and it's a very small category that I am just like, this is what I'm into. I'm not into a huge scale of things, like not to diss any like shows, but you know, like The Boys or you know, Peaky Blinders, like stuff like that. Huge fan bases, huge fandoms, but it's just I'm not like on that outside realm to where I see a lot of those shows and I'm like, ooh, I like all of these. For me, it's like 3-4 shows and I'm like, that's my thing. But of course, Star Wars being number one. But I like to say I'm a nerd. You know, I'm really dedicated, obviously, with Star Wars. But yeah, man.
So you've got your YouTube channel, which obviously I mentioned in the in the intro. What got you wanting to start that, and what keeps you motivated to keep that going?
With that, I used to watch a lot of Star Wars Meg, Star Wars Theory, the two biggest. They do a great job. And I would always tap in on Monday nights and watch Theory and Josh do their thing every Monday night on their podcast. And I was like, I feel like I have some mutual ideas, and then I feel like I have my own ideas with Star Wars. So instead of just being like, oh, I know some things, like I might as well put it to some people who might have the same ideas as me with Star Wars. I definitely don't put myself above anyone. If you're a fan of something, you're a fan of something.
Hmm.
But there's no rank, there's no level to it. But I just really want to kind of spread my word, spread my knowledge that I know with Star Wars, and see if there's some people out there that kind of agree with what I'm saying. And plus it's fun. you know
Yeah,
it doesn't have to feel like a second job. I already work full time, and this is just kind of like the side thing, but it's so much fun. I can kind of get away from everything else.
absolutely. I love that attitude about it as well, because I'm exactly the same. I work full time. This is a little side thing that I love to do for no other reason the fact that I love to talk about this stuff.
Right.
I'm the go-to guy for a lot of my friends and work colleagues to talk about this stuff too, and I love imparting that knowledge and schooling them on the things. And they're like, oh, I saw this on the show last night, but I didn't really understand it. And you get to spend like the next half an hour drawing all my little weird diagram and go, look, it's all connected here to this, to that, and the other. And bringing that knowledge and that love of what we love to other people is part of why we do it, I guess, isn't it?
Of course.
So in terms then of, let's get back to Star Wars in particular. This is what we're here for today. Your favorite and I hate the word saying like the least favorite, or your most sort of like, your least popular character that you personally like. Who's your favorite of all time in Star Wars? Who's one that if they disappeared and were cut out of all the films and TV shows tomorrow, you wouldn't care less about? Who have you got on your list?
If I was to do my personal number one character, it would be Obi-Wan Kenobi. I kind of look at it from a sports attitude. I'm very competitive. I grew up playing sports, but Obi-Wan is, what do we got? Revenge of the Sith, the Kenobi series. We have A New Hope. So he's 3-0 against the baddest dude in the galaxy, Anakin
Yeah.
Skywalker, Darth Vader. But as well, you could label that as a champion attitude, but just because you got so many rings doesn't mean you're the best of all time. But if we're going opinion, Obi-Wan's my favorite. I just love his trueness and his loyalty to the Jedi Order. And also, too, I love seeing that he has feelings. Of course, in Clone Wars, we see him have a love for Satine, and that's really cool. It makes him even more of a in-depth character, of course, because when you're in the Jedi Order, there's no relationships, there's no love, there's no outside sources. But it was cool, he said, if you just would have told me the words, I would have left. And like, that's just crazy. Anakin obviously did it behind, the Jedi back, but we get Luke and Leia from that. But that can just stem into a whole bunch of other things. What about you? Who's your number one?
Anakin/Vader. He's my guy. Always has been. Always will be. I've got a nice little collection just here that's solely focused on that character. So I was talking on a different podcast. I was a guest on a different podcast last night, and I was saying to them that the tale of Anakin Skywalker to Vader is the greatest Shakespearean tragedy of all time. Because his story at the end of the day is sad. The guy, he was a slave as a kid. He becomes a slave to the Jedi Order. He's manipulated by Palpatine, and then he's a slave to Palpatine and the Sith until he's able to, redeem himself and save his son. So he's a tragic story from start to finish, and no one's denying he did some bad shit. That is one thing that we can't deny.
Right.
But he did it in a way that he didn't feel like he had no other choice. He was doing it because he's like, I need to get to this end goal, and I can only do it by doing the things that other people are asking me to do. So for me, it's a tragic tale rather than one of like a guy that was just pure evil. He's
Right.
always touted as like the evil Vader from the original trilogy, and I'm like, it was more that he accepted his lot in life in a way, and he's like, fine, yeah, I'm going to be ruthless, I'm going to be deadly, and because that's what I've been molded into now by Palpatine. So yeah, I could talk forever about how tragic I think his story is, and how a lot of people look at it the wrong way, perhaps in terms of him being just a pure evil being. So, but it doesn't take away the original impact he had in those films when they first came out, and for millions of people that saw those films growing up and still see it growing up now and become new fans of the fact that, like, if that's the first thing that you see, you're like, holy crap, this is a really bad guy. But the layers that they're able to put into it over the years, and we get more of that as well from the new Disney Plus series like Kenobi. Obviously, the bit of backstory that we get and the extra layering to Anakin / Vader they put in there as well is it just adds more to his story for me. And I don't think I'm ever going to fall out of love of thinking about that story. So that's
Oh yeah.
what does it for me.
Yeah, and kind of to add on to that, when I was a kid growing up and watching the OTs, I really liked how, of course Vader's the, like you said, quote unquote, the bad guy. He, is just like, oh, that's just Luke and Leia's dad, he's gonna fight Luke and, he dies at the end. But it's the way they portrayed him, I think, was beautiful leading into the sequels. You get to see Anakin's deep dive into his character, and just it's an everyday struggle for him. He never had anything easy. He was put in situations he never could have thought of being in, and just and being a kid or being a slave for 9 years of his life. But if you want to add to when he was 23 when he turned to the dark side, that's an additional 14 years of still being a slave. But, it is what it is. But in Kenobi, though, I will say that was when I developed a small fear for Vader. Because when Vader and the Inquisitors pulled up to Mapuzo, and Obi-Wan was kind of looking out the blinders and looking at him, and just everything sinister he did, like, I was pretty creeped out, I can't lie. But that was just, I think that was the maybe number 2 best moment in the Kenobi series for me.
I mean, it was beautifully brutal, just walking down the street, dragging someone down there, snapping a kid's neck. It was definitely out there. Like, those are the moments when you're like, okay, he is pretty evil.
Yeah.
But, he's molded himself into that character to be able to be like that as well. And the fact that the other Inquisitors stand there in fear of him as well. So, but what I like about, people like yourself who like Kenobi is that, him and Anakin are pretty much the opposites of each other. Anakin's rash and impulsive and is ruled by emotion, whereas Kenobi is thoughtful and calm and sort of sits with the Force and lets that dictate his actions of what he thinks he should do. And in a way, apart from the point of maybe being a slave growing up, is to me they've both been through a lot of the same things and dealt with them in polar opposites. Kenobi's had a lot of his friends killed. He lost a woman that he loved, and gone through so many similar things. And he never let him turn it to the dark side or go down a dark path, even though he definitely could have done. And he almost sort of like, you get that feeling at times that he could let his emotions loose and let the rage loose, but he doesn't. He keeps it in him and remembers that, I'm a Jedi. This is what I'm here to do. I'm here to be the good guy. And it's these two guys that are the best of friends and brothers in life and in death as well. And they're just polar opposites and have been through so much stuff. And it's just like, this is one way to deal with it. This is one way not to deal with it, isn't it? So,
yep. It's beautiful storytelling, man.
Well, then who's your least favorite character in Star Wars? Everyone's got one. Let's put it out in the open.
When I was a kid, and I feel like when I was a kid, that was when I was just like, because I keep talking about it, just that was when Star Wars, I was in a whole nother world. And I mean, I'm still in a whole nother world when I watch it, of course, but it just doesn't amount to like when I was a kid and it was George's story. And that doesn't, push away from what Filoni's doing, Deborah Chow, Jon Favreau. But I used to not like Jar Jar, and everyone found him annoying as a character. But once I grew up and understood the struggles of Ahmad Best, the actor who played Jar Jar, and Kelleran Beck, I kind of was like, he really wasn't that annoying. And it kind of sucks because I feel like he would have had a bigger role in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And Jar Jar definitely, was behind a lot of things for what Padme was trying to control and
Hmm.
bring into politics. But it's just, you see him a lot in episode 1, The Phantom Menace, but then his character just dwindles down. And I mean, that stinks, man, but I definitely now, man, an annoying character, actually, if I was to pick one, would be DJ from The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I know who you
The
mean.
the code breaker, it's just like, I
Yeah,
felt like we spent 45 minutes on him, and it's like, and it's not even because he has like a
pointless.
stutter or anything, and it's just like it's like a plot filler or something. Like, give us 45 more minutes of Luke or
Hmm.
Finn or anything. But I mean, I assume, your standpoint with the sequels is kind of maybe up and down, or maybe you love it or maybe you just hate it. But I mean, with me, I do love the sequels. It's Star Wars. That's how I
Hmm.
look at it. But there's definitely, my biggest thing with it is just the choppiness and the rushed completion of a project. Like, give us more Luke. That's, besides Anakin, Obi-Wan, like, when you think of Star Wars, you at least think of Luke or Leia or Anakin. That's what the story's about, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fair point, especially with the sequels. Chops and changed directors. Obviously, with Carrie Fisher passing away, it changed their original plans. But to what you're saying about the bit about DJ, that whole casino bit could have just been cut out. It wasn't really needed. I know
Yeah.
it was supposed to be some big diversion to get Finn, to this point where at the end of that sort of, you go through that bit with the casino, and then they get on to obviously Snoke's ship, and they get caught, and it's supposed to sort of bring Finn to this realization that he has a purpose to fight for rather than just fighting for himself and wanting to run away from it all. I understand that was like the long way of getting there. I mean, you chuck Rose into that as well. Not the best of characters, especially that weird kiss where she's like, "Oh, we're going to do this by loving each other and all that sort of nonsense." So, yeah, I understand that bit of it. To be fair, but it is what it is. Like you say, it's Star Wars. I'm gonna watch it regardless, and I'm
Oh
always
yeah.
gonna go back to watch it at different points as well. Um, I've got a few. I don't think there's a character I really hate. To be fair, I think I've got overrated characters, which I don't understand why they're so hyped. And I think one of these, I've fairly known for having the odd controversial opinion. To be fair, and I think I'm going to throw one in there that you can tell me whether it's controversial or not. I mean, I think I like a lot of people. Whilst this isn't it, by the way, I'm just thinking they're going down my list of ones. There's like Boba Fett in the original trilogy looks badass, but didn't really do a lot. So why he was so loved was a bit beyond me growing up, because I'm like, he shows up, takes Solo away, and then in the next film he's killed pretty quickly and uselessly, a bit like his dad in Episode 2. To be fair, um,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe there were some parallels there, but I think even though I've watched it a few times and I love the Rebels show, I was never a huge fan of Sabine. To be fair, I thought she was maybe a little bit overrated as a character. So I was a bit apprehensive about what she was going to be like coming into Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think there's anyone that outright hate, but I always look at someone like Sabine and the original trilogy Boba Fett and go, these characters are loved, and I don't understand maybe why. They're just not at the top of the list for me, and something that if they disappeared, I wouldn't be too bothered about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's whatever the fun fact is. I know it's Boba Fett only had, it was like 11 to 13 minutes combined in the original trilogy. Yeah, I definitely get that, but like, I feel like if it wasn't for the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, like bringing him back and giving him um that story of his
Yeah.
comeback, like he made it out, and like that's unheard of, making it out of Sarlacc, and that's obviously really cool. But today, other than Obi-Wan, Boba Fett's probably my second favorite character today. But I do agree with the original trilogy, and then with Django, I mean, every clone that we ever get is a clone of Django, but Django has such a small role, but I don't know. I mean, maybe you can look at it with, that's how Count Dooku and Palpatine just used people like that,
Yeah.
and you kind of get to see it. But yeah, I agree, man.
Hmm. And then in terms of let's talk about the Disney era of Star Wars in terms of what's your favorite project that they've done. So strip away the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars TV show, everything. So we're talking about everything from what, like 2015 onwards, essentially. So what's been the most favorite project they brought out, whether it's one of the films or the TV series? What hits that spot for you at the top?
Mm, if we're gonna go with film, especially from the sequels, I'll definitely take The Force Awakens. It felt like a New Hope 2.0. Like a lot of people have that opinion. But it's true. Like that's really what it is. You kind of get
Hmm.
you get some boundaries set, you get some walls put up about what the story is going to be about. Um, I think each sequel movie has its flaws, but it also has its good things. Um, and with the amount of hate that the story and the writing gets, if you look at it from a cinematic standpoint, the production value and the graphics, it's
It's
the best
beautiful.
Star
Mm.
Wars we've gotten, movie wise. Of course, there are some things like in Rogue One. I think the ships in Rogue One look beautiful, and the lighting on the ships out in space looks amazing. Like the Super Star Destroyer that we get, and all the other ships just run into it. Like that stuff's beautiful. Um, but with Disney, if I was to go with a show, after watching Ahsoka the other night, really like they're both the episodes 1 and 2 are 10 out of 10s in my opinion. They're amazing. It felt like Star Wars again, and it's the scroll right at the beginning in the red font,
Mm.
and it was just like, okay, this is George Lucas's apprentice, Dave Filoni. This is the guy right here. But I think, of course, Mandalorian, I love it. Um, it's great. It's what I feel like Mandalorian paved the way for trying to redeem Disney Star Wars today. That's literally the backbone of Disney Star Wars, in my opinion, is the Mandalorian. But obviously, we're seeing with what Dave Filoni's done, it's Ahsoka's right there. But at the same time, who these next 6 episodes could be horrible for all we know. Like that would be crazy. I feel like that there's a 1% chance that could happen. But I mean, yeah. What about you?
Oh, yeah, I've been thinking about it, and Mandalorian's definitely going to be very close to that top spot, especially season two. I think season two of Mandalorian was quite possibly top three of Star Wars things of all time in terms
Mm-hmm.
of the content that we got and everything behind it. I really loved the Andor show, like a lot of people. It was a real slow burner that just got more and more intense as it went on. That was a beautiful looking show as well in terms of how they did everything there. In terms of the films, I think Rogue One has probably been my favourite in the newer era. Obviously, very much so because of that final Vader scene as well. Um,
Man.
I jumped up at the cinema when that happened. I was just like, God damn it! I was like, Vader's badass. And because it just adds to my love of that character. So I think it was great overall, the film, not just obviously the last part, but it just adds that sort of like chef's kiss right onto the
Oh
end of
yeah.
it, doesn't it? So I'm super excited where Star Wars has still got to go. I I don't like it when people sort of crap on Disney and go, oh, I don't like Disney Star Wars because of this, that, and the other, and whatever agenda they think they're pushing. Because to me, I'm like, without Disney, we wouldn't have more Star Wars. There wouldn't be
Right.
any more Star Wars. And so I will sit there for every new episode and every new film that they bring out, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's not going to matter to me because it's Star Wars, and I'm just going to love it. And I'm glad that we get to see a lot more, because who knew after the sequels and the Clone Wars TV show that we were ever going to get this much more Star Wars.
Oh yeah. It's grown so much, and it's all generational in my opinion. You're gonna like something. If you like something, you're gonna like it. If you're gonna hate something, you're gonna hate something. But I feel like once it gets to a personal level, like a lot of these people are bashing on Kathleen Kennedy, and it's like, you don't know this woman. She's, I mean, we only see so much. Her name is just in the bold print with these Disney projects. But I feel like people really don't sit there and understand that it's not George Lucas anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. It almost, makes my mind boggle. Like, I understand, the Kenobi show, for instance, like, why did Reva get so much time? Well, what's going on is they're doing a backstory with Order 66. It adds more weight to the character, and she wants to take out Vader as well. We actually get to see some personalities of people that Vader killed in the night of Order 66. And people are mad that we're getting so much Order 66 all of a sudden. It's like, it would have always been a mystery. And all these Disney Plus shows, they're saying, like I've seen on Twitter, TikTok, comment sections on any YouTube video, anywhere. It's like, there's too much Order 66. And it's like, is there though? How can there be not enough? There's still so much that we haven't even seen. So I don't know, man. It's just once it gets to a personal level, that's kind of where I check out. I love to hear what everyone's ups and downs are with opinions and liking things, but it seems like the people who are hating, they think it's just facts and that's how it is, and you gotta bash on someone, and I don't agree with that. Like,
no, I'm in agreement with you on that, because like these people that go, well, that's not canon to me, it's not my head canon. And I'm like, at the end of the day, that's, to me, it's the most ridiculous thing. If you want to like ignore something or pretend it doesn't exist, that's your individual right, but it doesn't change the fact of what is canon and what isn't. Because I always say, at the end of the day, I'm there as a consumer and as a fan to sit there and watch the stories I'm being told. I don't get to dictate what canon is. I don't get to decide what it is. Canon is what they write and what they decide, and I'm just there to enjoy it. Don't have to enjoy every part of it. I can think some of it is mediocre or anything like that. But at the end of the day, canon is canon. You don't get to decide that as a fan. If you wanna write what's canon, buy Disney, buy Lucasfilm, and write it yourself. Otherwise, it is what it is, and either enjoy it or stay away from it. So,
yep.
But we've got something super exciting to get into, with this show. So this show has been a long time coming. I think we all knew it's been on the way for some time, and Rosario Dawson has been a fan casting of Ahsoka for a long time, and we were all psyched when we got to see her in the Mandalorian, and obviously a little appearance in Book of Boba Fett as well. But coming into this show, what were your expectation levels for it? What were you sort of hoping you were going to see? What were your dreams and expectations for this show before it aired?
I remember watching the Jedi episode in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and it was, a Wednesday night, 2 a.m., U.S. Central Time. And I remember waking my little brother up because he was a huge Clone Wars fan, and he would school me on Ahsoka. And at the time, I was kind of like, cool. Like, that's weird. Anakin had an apprentice, but he wasn't a master. Whatever. So I woke him up. We watched it, and that episode made me an Ahsoka fan right away. The screen time she gets, Rosario Dawson is an amazing actress, and I think Dave sees things that I feel like we can't even see with Star Wars and the direction. And I just feel like with Ahsoka, the way she teamed up with Mando to imprison Morgan Elsbeth, that we see in Ahsoka as well, and Din Djarin, a huge fan favorite, and she doesn't want to train Grogu. And, Ahsoka, I was like, this character, if she doesn't have a backstory, we're going to see her later in The Mandalorian. And, it would be cool to see her with Bo-Katan again, a lot of what ifs and cool things. But I knew once they announced that she was getting a show, I knew that Rosario Dawson was going to just walk into a world of, she's the limelight. And I feel like you can't cast someone else more perfect than Rosario Dawson for Ahsoka, because I feel like she did her homework. She looked at the character and was like, I'm not an actress right now. I am Ahsoka, and the way in Ahsoka 1 and 2 already, she's doing a great job. But, I was going into it with an open mind, and like I said already, I felt when that red scroll came on, I was like, this is going to be some dope shit.
Absolutely.
Excuse my language, but
no, it's all good. Yeah, but it does give that red scroll at the beginning. It just did give the feel of almost like an original trilogy piece, didn't it? Because we know it's all
Man,
set around a similar timeline, or obviously, we know it's post Episode 6 anyway. But the way that they had the red scroll, and then the way that they panned down to the ship and like the camera sort of going across it, it gave a very original trilogy feel to it, didn't it? So you're like, this is
yes.
Star Wars. I haven't had Star Wars in a few months now. I'm gagging for something, and I'm like, this is definitely it. So what are your thoughts then on the fact that Rebels characters coming into this? A lot of the live action crew from the Ghost, have appeared in the first few episodes. Were you a fan of Rebels, the animated show itself?
Yeah, Rebels, I will say, was the show I least watched. I've only seen it 2 times through. Um, and I didn't, back when the Mandalorian episode came out with Ahsoka, I was just kind of like, oh, she's only in Clone Wars. And I actually watched Rebels for the first time like 2 years ago. That way I could really be like, okay, let me dive deep into this character a little bit more. And I think it's really cool that we're getting Hera in live action. Really awesome. Uh, Sabine, I always thought she was kind of ornery and like a little misfit in Rebels from what I've seen. Um, and I thought it was really cool. I love the actress because that movie recently with Jamie Foxx, and he's a vampire hunter. It was a Netflix
Oh
show.
yes, yeah,
It was like Night Shift, I think was
yeah,
what it
that
was
was it.
called.
Yeah,
uh the actress that plays Sabine was in that, and that was when the casting came out for Ahsoka, and I was like, oh, I could see her being Sabine Wren, and she was a cool vampire in the movie. So I was like, oh yeah, this will be cool. But I think it is really cool talking about Rebels characters going into Ahsoka. I think it is really cool that we're not getting so much Ezra right away. And I think it's really cool that we're not getting Kanan, because I feel like if we were just to bring those characters back, that just makes the circle full, and it's just 100% fan service. And I think that's kind of what pushes everyone off of Star Wars, because they expect, Luke to come in and save the day, which he did. Beautiful. That is very well executed for
yeah.
fan service, quote unquote. But, if we were to have Mace Windu comes out of nowhere and fights Boba Fett because he killed Django. Like, I would
Mm.
hate that. That's just no. Find a really good way, to bring certain characters in for fan service, and I'll be cool with it. But I think it's really cool, and Thrawn too. There's rumors that we're not even going to get Thrawn until the last episode, like 2 minutes before the credits roll. So I mean
I would
that.
riot, to be fair, if that happened. But that's
Yeah,
um,
but I like it. What do you think about the Rebels characters?
yeah, I'm a big Rebels fan. To be fair, it's I think it's a little bit like Clone Wars in the fact that, like, say, Series 1 wasn't necessarily amazing, but as the show goes on, it got better and better.
Mm-hmm.
I think Clone Wars suffered from that as well in terms of Series 1, maybe even parts of Series 2 weren't necessarily amazing. But then it just went from strength to strength and got better and better. And the same for Rebels, to be fair. It was obviously where they brought Thrawn into the fold originally. He hadn't been in any of the new canon Star Wars stuff, so to speak. Obviously, he had his novel trilogy that was part of the Legends universe. So to bring him into live action, I think what's really great about this is that we're getting, and it's something I am going to touch on, is the fact that we're getting the same actor that did his voice in Rebels is playing the live action version, because he obviously has such a distinct voice. Lars Mikkelsen is the actor playing him. He has such a
Mm-hmm.
distinct voice anyway. But the fact that going from the animated show to live action, you've got to be careful sometimes. I think because you can lose the character going from, say, animated where they're beloved and you've got the voices and you're very familiar with it, to live action. I think Rosario
Yes.
Dawson nails it because this is an older Ahsoka anyway from what we've seen in Clone Wars, and even if it was voiced by the same person in Rebels, Ahsoka at this stage is in her 40s, so she's a bit older, a bit more mature. Rosario Dawson's got a good enough voice that it relates and it doesn't cause too much discord in my head about it. The same with Thrawn. We know it's the same voice guy, so we know the voice is going to be amazing. Even if in the trailer he looked a bit like a blue Elon Musk. Um,
Ethron
which,
Ethron Musk.
yeah. The
Love it.
same voice is going to be doing it, so that's going to be fine. I was a little bit worried about Hera and Sabine. And obviously, we got that. Sorry, I should have said we got the cameo obviously from Zeb in The Mandalorian season 3. Um,
Yes.
and the same guy voiced him for that. So it all sort of worked out. So Hera and Sabine were going to be the two, really, that sort of make or break their transition over.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I've got to say, Sabine, yep, I thought the actress doing it did a decent job. I wasn't too sold on Hera just yet. I'm going to need to see more of Hera in the show to really be sold. It just didn't feel like Hera to me. Obviously,
Right.
the look is going to be a bit different. Yeah, because she had these like massive eyes in the animated Rebels, didn't she? And you obviously can't really do that with a person playing her. But just the whole look of Hera, the feel of her, the voice of her, didn't quite feel like Hera to me.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one to transition them from animated to live action, and not everyone's going to love it at every point. But I think for the most part, they're going to get it right by through this series.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my wife and I watched, and she pointed out that Hera's makeup looked weird, and I was like, it kind of does. Like in the cheek area, it's just a little kind of like splotchy. But my thing with Hera was the green skin and then the very bright blue eyes. Animation, that's gonna, it looks great. It's especially with colorization and animation, it's a lot easier to blend and to make it look more comparable. But in live action, the bright blue eyes, you can just tell they're contact lenses. But that's definitely me nitpicking. But I do agree with the character. It doesn't feel like her yet.
I was convinced though that in Rebels, Hera has almost green eyes rather than bright blue. Maybe it's me misremembering, but I'm sure I said it to my other half when we were looking at the trailer for Ahsoka, going, Hera, she's got really blue eyes in this trailer, but I'm sure they were more green in Rebels itself.
Right.
Maybe something I have to look back on and double check. I'm sure they wouldn't have got that completely wrong, and I guess the one person out of the Rebels crew we haven't talked about, which they absolutely nailed to a T, good old Chopper. Chopper absolutely nailed him. I don't think they're going to put a foot wrong with Chopper. Everybody's favourite murder bot. So,
Yeah.
how are you feeling about Ahsoka, about Ezra coming in? Obviously, later, he's been gone. Obviously, a long time now. What are you expecting? Obviously, there's a lot of rumors that go around about what's he going to be like. Is he going to fall into the dark side, and it's going to be someone like Sabine that pulls him back to the light? What are your expectations for Ezra? Because he's going to play a decent role in the latter part of the series, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think for me, what would be 100% with Ezra is if they finally get Thrawn and Ezra back, using the Eye of Sion. That is going to be awesome. I can't wait for that episode to see how that is utilized. But I actually really don't want Ezra to be good anymore. It's been 14 years, unless he like ran away when they got into the unknown galaxy. I just don't think he would have ran away and did his own thing for 14 years without trying to get back to the crew. I want him to be fully tapped into the dark side. That's a long time of being just without his people, and I think your mood changes very fast, and I feel like in that Star Wars universe, it's just like ours here. Your moods can be changed very fast, and 14 years is a long time. That's a long time, and I think it would just add a lot of weight, and maybe more so of the good guys don't finish last. We want Ahsoka to be alive and well. We want Sabine to be alive and well, but I think with Sabine, needing Ezra, for emotional support and the relationship that they formed, I want him to come back and her be just completely devastated that Ezra is not Ezra anymore. And I think that would just be so great. I want to see struggle with our characters, our good characters. And I would love to see Ezra fully tapped into the dark side.
I think that'd be pretty awesome, to be fair. Do you expect to see any deaths in this series, like major player deaths? Because it's something I campaign for in almost every film and TV series. They need major characters to die a bit more often.
Yes.
And I guess it is that whole thing of because we don't necessarily see. I know that we've got couple more series to go, and then we get that sort of big wrap up film, don't we, from Dave Filoni, where they're going to wrap up the Mandoverse stories. So Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett. It's all going to come together. And to me, it's going to be a big battle. That's going to be a film that showcases the final stand, and then the of what's left of the Empire and Thrawn, and
Right.
the rising of the First Order coming up. But maybe there's going to be more. They keep sort of any big deaths for that sort of scenario because we don't see them in the sequels and stuff like that. But do you expect anyone to die in the Ahsoka series, or is that sort of maybe pushing it a bit far?
I think like you said, I think every season of a good show needs some sort of missing character, missing piece. It adds weight, you know. It's obviously in the real world it sucks when we have passings, but I feel like in a show and a story, it's a part of life and it adds weight. Um I think with this season though, I feel like you know, may he rest in peace, Ray Stevenson.
Mm.
I feel like that character is gonna have a change of heart and want to redeem himself with the light. And I think maybe Thrawn or someone will, you know, cap him off. I think maybe Balin will sacrifice himself for Ahsoka. Maybe Ahsoka is going through a rough time fighting with Thrawn. Maybe I. I like to see the direction of where this show is going, but at the same time, things can flip. But I think Balin's skull um, might be
Hmm.
gone. Maybe Morgan Elsbeth, but if those were to be two deaths, I think it would be them. I don't think anyone in the Ghost crew will die, but I mean things can change in an episode.
I think those are two good shouts, to be fair, in terms of Balaam having a change of heart and sacrificing himself, and then Morgan Elsbeth. I don't see any reason really for her to live on, potentially even killed by Thrawn himself. Um, I think would probably be a good way and sort of just show Thrawn's ruthlessness as well.
Right? Could you imagine her doing all this work to get him back, and like right as he pulls up, he's just like bang, and she's
Yeah,
gone. Like
that would be
what the
amazing.
hell?
That would be amazing. I mean, a little thing about Morgan Elsbeth, to be fair, revealed. I'd heard this rumor before, and I didn't think it was necessarily going to be true. And they confirmed it in this show that she's technically from Dathomir. She's her ancestors are Night Sisters, whether she's not necessarily one. But it also brings forward a bit more of a question because it was said as part of her backstory is that during the Clone Wars she stripped her home planet of its resources to use to build up her own sort of empire and her own businesses and if we've got some answers as to that, if that was Dathomir, that sort of raises some really interesting points about her character and its history. Do you not think?
Nah, I think it's really cool. You know, obviously, like I said earlier, I love Maul, and Maul, you know, it's from Dathomir, and the Clone Wars episodes with the Night Sisters, Dathomir, Mother Talzin.
Hmm.
It's Savage Opress, can't leave him out. Those are Saj Ventress. It keeps going, but it's. I feel like Dathomir has so much dark and mysterious history, and we haven't really folded into it. Maybe we can get like 15 minutes or something in the Ahsoka series with Morgan Elsbeth showing, you know, what went on. Maybe oh, that would just be insane if we got like a
It would be.
Grievous flashback of when
Oh.
it was getting destroyed. They show the siege of Mandalore in live action when the TIE bombers are just dumping on it in Book of Boba Fett. And I think it would be really cool if we could just get maybe 30 seconds, even screw 15 minutes, just 30 seconds of seeing, you know, Grievous just from a bird's eye view, just marching and battle droids just going crazy. But I love the magic aspect of the Night Sisters. You know, obviously there's the Force, but you want to think the Force that's the only magical thing in this galaxy. But like, no, there's like actual magic, so that adds a lot more, you know, different strengths in the universe. It's not just the Force and who can fight with a lightsaber. Like some Night Sisters, you know, they whoop some tail. They really get after
Oh
it.
yeah, they are pretty lethal. And I'd
Yeah.
love to see Dathomir in live action. We've not seen it in live action yet, only in obviously animation. So, like you said, even to get a glimpse of it in live action and just this little scene on the planet, yeah, I think that'd be pretty ace. Did you ever play the Jedi Fallen Order game?
You know, I did. I remember it came out right before quarantine. Um, and I had some friends playing it, and I was watching Shameless the year before that, and I was like, oh, that's Ian Gallagher, he's a Jedi. That's weird. But actually, I played the game for the first time maybe around Thanksgiving time last year. The game was only $6 on the Xbox store, and I was like, I'm actually going to play this and watch the story myself instead of just reading about it. And man, I was blown away. The Dathomir for sure is my favorite planet, and love Marin. Marin's a great character.
Just the fact that we get to explore a bit of Dathomir, and you get a Night Sister that goes out and becomes part of your crew as well. This is why I need to see more of it in live action. I love that particular lore about the planet. So, episode 1 then. What were your overall thoughts? I know you've already said that you give both episodes a 10 out of 10 straight away. What did you love about this episode? What did you feel it's going to be setting up in terms of, obviously we know the main story is that Thrawn and Ezra coming back, but was there any other bits that you thought, oh, they're setting up something else for the future here? Initial thoughts to just episode 1.
With episode 1, I feel like it is very straightforward. I feel like it's just a massive recap of what Dave Filoni. We're just picking Dave's brain in the first episode. How I see it, we're just seeing what he's setting up. I love how it opens up. We don't get Ahsoka, any member of the Ghost Crew, right off the bat. It's Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati just pulling up, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna mess y'all up real quick." And I don't know what you thought, but Baylan Skoll feels like a prequel Jedi, like down to the touch. It feels like he could be like one that was side by side with Anakin during the Clone Wars, or side by side with Kit Fisto or Plo Koon, and like has that prequel swag to him, and I love that.
Definitely does, and it helps as well that he arrives in an old Republican ambassadorial ship as well, doesn't it? So
I know. I was like, that is not the Bad Batch shuttle. No way. Just starts off with Wrecker, and that'd just be nuts. But yeah, I love those ships too, but I feel like there's a direction that Dave wants to go, and I'm just kind of coasting with it. I don't really know what to expect, really. I just, other than Ezra and Thrawn later. But I mean, maybe the next episode 3 is just straight Clone Wars flashbacks. We get to see Anakin. I think with it only being 31 minutes, I think we'll get some cool callbacks, and maybe this is the fan service episode. But episode 1 was really good. I think, like I said, just kind of a big recap, setting the tone for the show. And I think it did take some weird turns, like with Ahsoka on, I have the planet written down. First episode.
Or what, the planet where Sabine is, or?
It's where she gets the star map from.
Oh, that one. Okay. Yeah, I can't remember it off the top of my head.
I'm probably going to look forever. My handwriting's so small. But anyways, that planet, I think it was cool because that was straight Jedi Fallen Order, cracking codes and moving this and moving that. I was like, oh, Dave Filoni is, I bet people just simply playing that video game were like, oh, I see where this is going.
It's literally what I said as well, because I when she's in that sort of thing, trying to match up the different bits to make the balls light up. So those markings on the wall look like the Zepho with those balls that you had to do to solve the puzzles. So combining, that I thought that was a brilliant touch, because it does make you think of the games and going, I was problem solving.
Yeah, simply. And I think it's really cool, in the sequels we get like the Sith Wayfinder. That's like the key to find Exegol. The Sith holocrons that Ezra had, and Darth Maul wanted, like the keys to the universe and the keys to the good or the dark, the light or the dark. And I think that it's pretty much episode 1. You get little pieces of everything. And you get little pieces of Star Wars, not little pieces of a random character or a random story, a random direction. You just get straight Star Wars. So that's what I love about that.
And it was especially on Lothal, it was just straight up callbacks to Rebels in every way you looked, whether it was getting to see the Loth Cats. I saw more Loth Cats in the first 2 episodes than I thought I was ever going to see.
Yeah.
The fact that when they're there at like the big celebration of when the Empire were driven from Lothal, you got Clancy Brown, obviously bringing forward his character of Ryder Rosati from Rebels because he voiced the character in that show, and it was even obviously done to look a bit like him. So he brings it up, and obviously I have Jai Kell, who was a kid that was in Rebels as well. So all these little callbacks and everything, they're not ignoring anything. If you know your Star Wars, then there's so much for you to sort of be joyful that you get to see these little bits and pieces of.
Yes.
It was a really good callback as well as setting up a story moving forward. In terms of Sabine in this episode, as I mentioned, it's been quite some time since Rebels at this point. We're talking about a minimum of 10 years. And at the end of Rebels, I assumed Sabine's very early 20s. She's about 17, 18, or about 18, 19, I think, when Rebels starts, 4 years on. She's going to be in the early 20s, at about 10 years on to the point where we're at. So she's about 30, if not her early 30s at this moment in time. But to me, she was kind of still acting like this is a bratish little kid in Rebels, to be fair, because she's like, I'm going to steal the star map and go off by myself, even though I was told not to because it's dangerous. That slightly annoyed me a little bit because I'm like, surely she would have grown up by now, or is she still this rebellious little Mandalorian that you can't? To be fair, can you ever really curb Mandalorians' attitudes?
Nope.
So that was what I was put it down to. I was like, she's a Mandalorian. At the end of the day, they don't really care what other people think. They're just going to do what they want to do, don't they? So.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool too. And then especially when Hera was like, well, she's a Mandalorian. Can you blame her? And it's like that's Sabine's character, and I think it's cool, they show, Ahsoka's grown up. Hera's, she's space mommy now. And Sabine's just her good old self. I think that's cool because, if those characters have showed some growth, I think it's cool that at least one stays the same. That way it feels a little more true. And because especially, if Ezra's going to come back and he's dark side, that's another change right there. And we already have changed enough with not having Kanan a part of the group. So,
and then what about the battle at the end of this episode? And it just goes to show, really, I think, that even though Sabine is proficient with a lot of weapons, she was obviously trained by Kanan to use the Darksaber and has beaten other non-Force users, either with staffs or lightsabers, as we've seen her in a few battles. Just goes to show, I think, that you put a non-Force wielder with a lightsaber up against a Force wielder with a lightsaber, you're still going to get your ass whooped, essentially.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was really cool that was going to be my biggest thing, was if they were going to make Sabine Force sensitive. And there's a couple hints at it in Rebels, but I feel like they're small enough to where it doesn't really translate into the live action version. I feel like that would have thrown me off a little bit if she was live action, because I want Grogu to be the second Mandalorian Jedi, besides Tar Vizsla. But with her being House Wren, I think she's gonna be a fighter no matter what. But I mean, when they're Force sensitive and they're trained, whether in Jedi arts or Sith arts, I just don't think she can hang with it. Maybe, her and Shin definitely fight again. We know that. So
yeah,
maybe it'll be a little bit better.
I'm not going to lie, in episode 2, when it was effectively confirmed by Hu Yang that she's not on the same level, Force sensitive wise as other people, I was relieved, to be fair. I thought if they'd gone down this whole route of 4 years of having Sabine in Rebels and being surrounded by Kanan and Ezra, who are Force sensitive, and it's not revealed that she's Force sensitive, so then all of a sudden have it revealed at this point, I think would have been a bad play.
Yeah.
So it's more the fact that I think Ahsoka was trying to train her to keep control of her temper, to have a calmer persona, and to obviously train her better in combat anyway. So I'm glad that they didn't go down that route. Yes. But at the same point, I like the fact that she was open to being trained more by someone, to be an apprentice to someone who she knows is more experienced, has a better worldly view of things anyway, and is open to being taught in a better way. And come out of that, at the end of the day, you can't really be mentored by someone like Ahsoka and not come out of it a better person.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
But I think what's also interesting on the flip side of that is that we learn that Ahsoka was the one that originally walked away from Sabine. And what I've chatted to a few people about is the fact that Ahsoka's grown up massively over time. She's very calm. She's very collected. She's incredibly wise. She's incredibly strong in the Force, as we know, and a great combatant. But at the same point, for all of her sort of worldly calmness and the wiseness that she has as a character, she still has that bit of her that's scared. She talks to obviously the Mandalorian about the fact that when he wants her to take on Grogu, she's like, no, I can't because of his strong attachment to you. I've seen what happens to people when they have strong attachments to others, obviously referencing Anakin.
It's so chilling, man. Whew.
Yeah, so
That
she's
was
seen
so awesome.
what's happened to Anakin. She won't train Grogu, and she's walked away from Sabine. So she still have this element in there where she's scared that she doesn't have, or she isn't the right person to train people and to lead them to improve themselves and be a better person, which, considering who Ahsoka is and the strong sense of righteousness that she has as a character, it's a little bit heartbreaking that she doesn't seem to have the belief in herself on that side of things. What do you think?
Yeah, it's her master dealt with probably the most trauma in any Star Wars character that we've seen, and I know she sees a lot of Anakin in herself with training, especially with the daughter, her essence being in Ahsoka. That I feel like she has even more of a feeling for the Force, and I don't blame her for not wanting to take on Grogu, because I bet she even sympathizes for Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan couldn't do anything, and the way everything went down, and especially in the last episode of Clone Wars, she felt that disturbance in the Force and felt her master, her brother, her father figure, however she looks at him, like he's gone. And when things happen to you, you always know that it could happen, or when things don't happen to you, you start to realize that it could happen to you. So maybe taking on Sabine, she really cares for Sabine. She doesn't want to let her down or force her down a path that she can't continue to follow. And especially with Grogu too, I just think that was a really good way to just bring Ahsoka back and see our new beloved characters with a older beloved character. I think that's really cool. But yeah, Ahsoka definitely has, I feel like everything in her decision making is definitely stemmed from trauma.
Absolutely. Let's move on to episode 2 then. Back-to-back episodes. I love that. And getting to obviously see a bit more straight away rather than having to wait another week. Don't know how you feel about this actually before we jump into the episode. The time of the episodes. So Disney have this habit of opening episodes of series tend to be this 45 minutes, 50 minutes long, and then almost immediately they drop them down to like half an hour. I find that frustrating, especially since I think the early season of The Mandalorian, everything was 45 minutes to an hour long. And all of a sudden they're like, nope, let's cut it down. I'm like, if you're going to give us shorter series, at least give us 45-minute long to an hour long episodes rather than 6 episodes of 30 minutes. I find that a little bit annoying. What about you?
Yeah, I do find it annoying because I feel like with a TV series, this is your time to capitalize on a story that you don't have to crunch down into a hour 45 to 2 hour 15-minute movie. By the time you're watching the 4th episode of a season show, you're already at a movie's length. So basically you're getting 2, maybe 3 movies in one season. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it either. And the absolute worst was when with the other series, they come out at 2 a.m. my time. So I just stay up, play some Call of Duty, wait till it comes on. And I'm tired and I'm watching, and it's a 30-minute episode and it's just a filler episode. It's like, why are you guys wasting all this money to create a filler episode? Which, like we said earlier, we're not the ones in charge of anything. And but it's like, man, come on, cut me something. But that's how I look at it.
I'm on the flip side of that now because over here it used to be that the episodes were released at 8 a.m. on like a Wednesday morning. And to be fair, I would, unless I wasn't at work till late that day or I wasn't at work at all that day, I would obviously wait till I have to get home from work like I did yesterday to sit down and watch it. But now they just announce, it's coming out in America at Tuesday night at either 9 p.m. or 6 p.m. depending on your time zone. and it's now 2 a.m. on a Wednesday morning for me. So I'm like, I have this dilemma of like, okay, it's close enough to still being awake that I could stay up and watch it, but I'm going to be knackered for work the next day. Do I watch it when I get up? Do I watch it when I get home? And I'm like, and then I have to stay off social media all day to make sure
Yep.
nothing's spoiled, because people spoil stuff so quickly nowadays. Like yesterday, I was like very carefully not going through Instagram or TikTok, because I'm like, I don't want to see anything pop up that's just going to ruin it. Thankfully, it didn't happen. So
Yeah,
yes,
that's good.
longer episodes, Disney. If we don't be doing this 30-minute stuff, it's not good. Episode 2, obviously starting to progress a bit more on the story. We get a bit more about obviously the Eye of Sion, this big ship that they're building. We get to visit Corellia as well. Obviously not seen that
Yeah.
since the Solo film. What were your thoughts on this episode?
I think it's really cool. You know, there's callbacks everywhere. You know,
Mm.
when Shin sent out the probe to kind of look over Sabine, that was a straight Darth Maul reference from
The
episode 1.
the noises were exactly the same ones they used as well from episode 1
Yes.
for the droid.
So good, man. That little buzzing sound, just
Mm.
amazing. Nostalgia. But Corellia, awesome. You know, Han Solo, you know, that's our space guy. He's the he's definitely set the tone for your space smuggler. You know, that's a great character, one top 5 character in my book. But you know, Corellia is really junky, and it's just lots of roads with just crap on it. And I feel like it was just copy and paste from the direction that they were shot in Solo, just obviously with a bright sky and bright sunny day instead of a gloomy, rainy looking day like we got in Solo. But yeah, I love seeing Corellia. The Eye of Sion is very interesting to me. I'm ready to see what that does. But I think my favorite part of episode 2 was Hu Yang telling Sabine, like, dude, wake up. You're making
Yeah,
too many excuses for yourself. And I honestly, with how, you know, how much of a leader Ahsoka is, I feel like she would have never told Sabine, like, hey, you need to calm down. But Hu Yang, he's been around 500 plus years. So he's like, I've seen some things, so you need to chill out. You know, I love that.
yeah, I thought that was a great scene, that chat between the two of them, and obviously having Hugh Yang back as well is fantastic.
Yes.
A great callback to the Clone Wars, and obviously putting him to good use as well in terms of studying the lightsabers to work out obviously Balon's skull was. Um, Overall, great episode. Like you say, the callbacks. We knew we were getting one shot, which was like a like for like from Rebels, which was the shot of that we basically what we get at the end of Rebels, when they do sort of like the montage when we see Sabine in the communication tower looking out over Lothal, and then she's there in front of the mural, and Ahsoka comes behind her. That was something we got to see like for like, which was pretty good. But then also the bit where she cuts her hair off. She sat down there. She's got her Mandalorian armor on. She's got a helmet in front of her. The way that she then picks up the knife, handles it, and then chops her hair off was like for like how Kanan does it. Obviously, in the episode where he dies in Rebels. So
Yep.
I love that they were doing those callbacks, because to me it just kind of makes your hair stand up a little bit on the back of your neck or on your arms to see those moments and go, God, this is bringing back memories of obviously the emotionalness of Rebels, but
Yes.
bringing it forward now and giving it new life in here by parodying it.
Yeah, I love that too. You know, it's the callbacks are important. You know, you're paying homage to what gave these new shows ideas. It's, you know, it's just like thanking your older brother or older sister. You know, thank you for your knowledge.
Hmm.
Thank you for, you know, setting me up. And I feel like, especially with Dave being in charge of Rebels and Ahsoka now, I think it's really cool that he can reuse things, but it adds so much weight and so much emotion. And I I know it gave him goosebumps, you know, writing that frame in. I know that was just a great feeling for him. I love what he's doing right now. It's amazing.
I mean, I'm guessing you don't fall into, because it's something I hear a little bit, not too often, but every now and again I hear it from someone about Dave Filoni is too stuck on the characters that he created. Because obviously he created, Ahsoka and various other people for Clone Wars. He did it, obviously, the new characters for Rebels. And some people are like, he just can't leave those characters alone. It's the only thing he can concentrate on is what he can do with his characters, rather than breathing new life into new characters now. Especially since him and Jon Favreau are working together a lot on The Mandalorian. Obviously, they're both, producing the show. Any particular thoughts about that? Because it's just something I hear every now and again, and I don't really know how to combat that, because he's done a great job with what he's been given in terms of and what he's created for Star Wars, and he's obviously going to do good things. I don't think he's going to do too much wrong. But at the same point, do you feel that there's a moment when he needs to put these characters to rest? And is that going to happen with the film he's going to be making that wraps up all these, and then he can put it to rest? Or do you feel like, sorry, just what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I've actually never heard that, and that's awesome to hear, coming from you. And we're definitely picking each other's brains on what we think of Star Wars. I actually like that idea, because he's taking George's story, things he's learned from him, and the things he's learned just from being a fan of Star Wars, and he adds in a character that is Ahsoka Tano and is a Togruta species, and is under Anakin Skywalker's wing, which was so confusing at first, just because Anakin would have been a Jedi Knight if that was the case, or a Jedi Master. And we never get that full circle for him. So obviously that character of Ahsoka is a huge deal. And already in the first 2 episodes, it has the best ratings of any Disney Star Wars show. And I mean, that definitely is a fact. It shows that he has this idea, he has these characters in mind, and it's not broken, so I don't think he needs to really fix it. I know he has an end for these said characters, and I know he's gonna probably have Ahsoka go out in a really, really good way, and I know it'll probably bring him to tears, knowing that he's getting rid of his, that's like his child. He created that character, and it means a lot to him, and it might mean just as much to us fans as well who like Ahsoka. But I think that's a cool take. It's him not wanting to branch out to other characters, but I mean, how many characters do you need? If it's his story, I think yeah, he's gonna do his thing, and I think it's a good direction. That's a good point, though.
Do you feel that when he wraps this story up at the end of it with this film, that this is where Ahsoka's story comes to an end? Simply because, and the only reason I bring it up is because it was a question put to me and I hadn't thought about it until then, is, that scene at the end of Rise of Skywalker when Rey's like trying to talk to the Jedi of the past, and we get all the cameos from the different people, of the voices in there. We get Ahsoka's voice in there, of her being one of those voices, and this is supposedly obviously Jedi that have all passed away at this point. So technically, I mean, they said what the film that wraps up all the Mandoverse is going to be set about 15 years before the sequel trilogy starts, and so there's only a few years in between episode 7 and episode 9. It's not like it spans a large amount of time, but with Ahsoka's voice being part of the dead Jedi reaching out to Rey, do you feel like then this is the moment where we do wrap it up, and she's going to be one of those people that does have a big sacrifice ending, and she becomes a martyr for the cause to save those around her?
When I was thinking of this kind of Mandoverse endgame, I was thinking that I don't think both Din Djarin and Boba Fett will die, but one of them has to go, and I think Ahsoka will be one to go with. I think Ahsoka and either Boba Fett or Din Djarin will be the ones to go. But if we are getting those Rey movies, we are getting Rey movies, but if we're getting those and Grogu is a part of those movies, I think that's when Din Djarin goes out. But then again, Grogu has so much more Mandalorian training that he still needs, and I feel like it would just be too unfinished, and his character would just kind of want to have like a path. Really, he'd just be kind of like, oh, I know some Mandalorian things, and then I kind of am refreshing my Jedi skills. But I do think Ahsoka for sure will go out in the movie, because I feel like she actually might be the main focus. Her and Thrawn will be the main focus of that movie.
I've got Thrawn to go as well in that film.
Yeah.
Obviously he's not going to be part of the new First Order, so I've got him. I did sort of peg Ahsoka. Interesting that you think Mando or Boba Fett goes. I would probably pick Boba Fett because he's going to be older at that point. He's going to be nearly 60 odd, I think,
Yeah.
mid 60s at this point, at that point in time. So there's definitely going to be a few. I'd be disappointed if we didn't see a few characters taken out in that series or in the lead up to it anyway. Because I know we've got another series of Mando to come. Obviously unknown about Boba Fett series 2, or if we can get Ahsoka series 2, but definitely excited for it anyway. And as I said, I love a good death, so the more in there that's going to appease my bloodthirst, the better.
Yeah, right.
In terms of what I like about these first 2 episodes overall is that it didn't necessarily try and throw too much at it either. It wasn't exactly fast paced, because when you say something slow paced, people tend to think that that's a bad thing. I don't necessarily think that saying that these first 2 episodes were slower paced than maybe people were expecting is a bad thing. It's setting the scene. It's what I associated with Andor as a series, that was a slow burner that built up and built up and got more intense and more intense as that went on before it crescendoed in a really good ending. And I feel like they're going to do a similar thing with Ahsoka.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I'm really excited for the future of this series. I'm glad we're getting 8 episodes. So 6 to me is just that little touch too short.
Yes.
I know the days of 24 episode series have gone. That doesn't really happen anymore. I mean, not that any of us, I think, would be complaining if we got a 24 episode series here, but I'm glad it's got at least a couple longer anyway.
Yes.
Anything else in terms of high hopes for this series that we haven't sort of talked about yet, or what you would like to personally see happen?
Well, yeah, I think my main thing, as we've said, we're getting Thrawn, we're getting Ezra back. My number one thing was for Sabine to not be force sensitive. I just feel like that would just kind of push down Grogu's character to be the next Mandalorian Jedi, and Sabine and Grogu being Mandalorian Jedi at the same time would just be kind of just not it, in my opinion. So far that's looking good, but my main thing is I really want 2 things. I really want Ezra to be just completely dark side. I love the aspect and the weight that would bring. But then my fan service thing would be I need Morgan Elsbeth to discuss to someone about Maul. That's just something I want. But other than that, I love the direction this is going, and those are my little things that I would like to see.
Amazing. I'm so looking forward to the rest of the series. I go in 2 minds. Like, sometimes I hate having to wait week by week for an episode, and sometimes I just want it to be dropped all at once so I can binge it. But then it's over too quickly, and having week gaps builds up that anticipation, I guess, doesn't it? So I can't wait for more of this. I'm really excited. It's Star Wars anyway, so I'm going to be loving it either way. But thank you so much for coming on and discussing it with me this week. I've been super excited to have you penciled in to come on for a while now, and I'm really glad that you've come on today. I really do appreciate it, bud. Tell everyone at home exactly where they can find you on social media.
All right. Yeah. Thank you again, man, for having me on too. I've been really looking forward to this. I've told a few of my friends and a few of my followers, got my first invite to a podcast, later in September, and it was really cool. I was telling my dad about it the other day, and you had just hit me up and said, "Hey, can we do this a little earlier?" And I was like, "Man, let's get it." This is awesome, great opportunity, and this is the first podcast I've ever been a part of. So thanks to you for making this happen, and really appreciate it, man. But I mean, you can find me on YouTube, Clan Brandalorian. I go over lore, theories, have some Funko and Lego reviews as well. And then TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter are all Brandalorian66, at Brandalorian66. Pretty simple. The TikTok, I usually had a little line of the pop of the day. I'd pick one of my Star Wars Funkos, kind of give it a little description and go into it, and basically just showing off the collection. It's fun to collect a lot of nerdy stuff, and I mean, it's fun, building the Legos, displaying them, and just display. I love it.
Well, it's one of the things that got us first chatting. We need to send you a message because I saw your pop of the day. You had like obviously the maskless Vader, and I
Yeah.
was like, "That's cool." It's a rare Vader pop that I don't have actually. If you can see just over my shoulder here, I now have that. I saw it in
Yep.
the wild about 2 weeks later, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm grabbing that bad boy." So,
Oh
but
man. Yeah.
everyone, go and give them a follow. It's been great to have you on the show. If you've loved this episode, give us a rate, give us a review, give us both a follow. Both of our social media details will be in the episode description, so please go and do that. I'm really excited to be back next week to continue chatting about the show. But until then,
The Force will be with you, always.